You're in for a bit of a treat. Now, Big Macs, $1 million property portfolios, we are literally talking to a 21-year-old. This kid's young, 21-year-old. He works at McDonald's. Not worked at McDonald's and built his portfolio. No, kid still works at McDonald's. And he has built 4 property portfolios made up of 2 residential, 2 commercial properties. And I entered into this conversation thinking, great, we'll just hear a bit of an investor story and it'll be all fun and dandy. It's not just that. This kid is incredibly switched on. The way that he thinks about property investing is exactly how we all need to be thinking about property investing at any age, 21 to 51. And this session is all about how this kid built $1 million portfolio. Interest rates have risen 13 times. Do you think that's let him stand in the way? No, he doesn't care. He is making money and his property portfolio is cash flow positive. Does he let anything stand in his way? No, he's run out of excuses. I just think, mate, he's 21. He doesn't know any better. So flipping Big Macs to flipping properties, there's something in there for everyone. So if you enjoy listening to property investment, tune in for this. My name's Joe Tucker. With Jeff Miles, we created Oz Property Investors, Australia's largest property investment forum with over 67,000 property investors. And every single week we interview awesome property people that have something interesting to tell us about their property journey and share the insights so you don't have to make the same mistakes they did to get to where they are today. So this session is with Max Jennings. It's called, I don't know what it's called, Property Flipping, Property Burgers. You're going to enjoy it. Tune in and let us know in the comments what your thoughts are and if you would do what he did. Enjoy.
And we are live on Oz Property Investors. We bring the big names and we bring the Big Macs apparently tonight. No, we should have done that. Why didn't we do anyway? So how you going, Max? What's happening?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me, guys.
Welcome, mate.
Very welcome.
Good to have you. I love a Big Mac. I'm not going to lie. I do love a Big Mac. But what I like more is from Big Mac worker, right? You're from flipping patties, and you haven't flipped property yet. You haven't sold one yet, but
no, not yet.
You do have a $1 million portfolio of properties from McDonald's at the age of 21. And
I think,
man,
I think Max is our youngest guest.
Oh, well, there you have it.
Probably.
Awesome.
Yeah. My favorite thing, right, is investor stories. There's another podcast that I used to listen to way back when, and it was literally just investor stories the entire time, and that got me jazzed up to hear. Okay, cool. I hear all this negative Nancy, like interest rates, and this is happening, that's happening, and blah blah blah, negative. But who's taking action? And Max, you are one person that has taken absolute action. And I don't know, is it ignorance? Are you like, oh, well, I don't know, I'm so young, I just have no idea, I'm just going to go ahead and buy a property? I don't think it is. I think there's a little bit more to that story, but I'm pumped for this one, mate. I don't know. I'm excited. What about you, Jeff? What are we chatting about? What is this?
So what we're going to, and I'm also excited. The reason I'm excited about this session is because there has been a buzz. There's been a buzz around Oz Property, and there usually is anyway. But yesterday, that post you went absolutely was on fire, and I think it'll be interesting to unpack some of those objections that people said. Oh, you can't do it. It's the salary's too low, and what are the quality of the properties and all that. So it's really interesting. But what we're going to talk to tonight, we're going to talk about what you've actually done in your journey, because I think that's important and very interesting to sort of set the scene, and then we'll sort of talk to how you've done it. So what is the how and what have you how have you gotten to that? And then I think what is interesting as well, we were talking about this prior to the show and in our pre-chat, we sort of said, well, you're planning for what's next. So for me, you're not just sort of stopping at where you are now. You've got the next sort of 3 or 4 moves in your playbook already. I'm excited about all of it, and throughout it, there's going to be plenty of sort of wisdom and knowledge from somebody who, at 21, you've got the world at your feet already. So it's going to be a great session, Joe. What I miss?
I don't think you missed anything, mate. I don't think you missed anything. I think people are going to like this one. You're going to enjoy it. Get some pens and papers ready because you're going to learn some stuff. What's our first question, Jeff? What's the first cab off the rank here?
Well, should we introduce Max first, or should we talk the first question? We need to work.
Who
that
is
out
he?
menu.
Who is this guy?
Yeah, because people may not know. So you have young Max Jennings. You have 4 properties at the moment, 2 resi, 2 commercial. We'll talk some of those. A total purchase price of $1 million, and we'll sort of maybe talk to that. You've got a yield on those of 8.8%, which is about 13K, I believe, gross profit. And we'll talk to what the numbers are as well now, because you did this all under 3 years ago at 18. And who are you? People probably know from the poster, you're a department manager for Macca's in South Australia. You've been there since October or since 2016. So 7 years. That's amazing. You've been promoted three times. How good is that? You do have a travel bug, and you've done the skydiving, shark cage diving, done a whole bunch of stuff. The other thing that people wanted you to mention is you volunteer for Southern Cross Care Thursday, and I think you do some sort of dog shelter. I think there's some dog shelter volunteering maybe as well. I could be getting that wrong. But also, I don't know. Somebody mentioned that to me.
He's an angel. This guy, he does everything.
Look,
I know. You're amazing.
I
So
but I think that's where it ends. My volunteering hasn't gotten that far yet.
It's coming soon to a Macca's store.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
So the first question we ask people as well, Max, is how did you get into property? Like, how did the journey start?
Well, I started off by just saving like a madman when I was in year 8. That's when I got my first job, and that was McDonald's, right? So I'd been cold canvassing, and then one day at karate, I'd made an application for McDonald's, and then they accepted it in like less than 24 hours. Had an interview there, showed up, nice shirt, nice tie, nice pants, well overdressed for what 14-year-olds do dress up for that job now in hindsight, but got the job pretty much on the spot there, so that was really cool. And then from there, like I just saved every single pay I had, and it built up to about 5,000, and I started seeing some compound interest from there, right? And then I got to 10, and I set myself a goal. All right, I want to get to 10, so I got to 10, right? And I like seeing the compound interest just continue to grow. So that was, awesome as a 14-year-old, seeing my hourly rate come in every month. So that's where my first taste of passive income was.
Were you a Dolomite kid? Were you the CV, or were you beyond that vintage? Okay, geez, yeah.
It's beyond that vintage.
Showing my age here now. 90s.
Were you born in the 2000s? Like, is this?
Yeah, 2002.
21. So it has to be Joe. Maths, mate. 2004 or 2003.
There we go.
Making me younger than I am.
Everyone now feels old. So, thanks for that, Max.
Yeah.
Dolomite, I think they phased out the Dolomite at some point. People are saying you're showing your age now, Jeff. Okay, so is that because this is one of the big things? So we did a post, and it was like, can someone at McDonald's buy 4 properties? And there was there was kind of 3 fields. Like the answer was no. Okay, great, close that off, shut that door, see you later. The other was like, oh, I'm super intrigued. How the hell did this guy do it? And then the third camp was like, no, you got to help with your parents. Now I'm all for your parents helping you out as much as you can. It's it's the privilege that you're born with. So if they can help you in any way that they can, go ahead and do it. There's other parents that can help and give someone. I have friends that have been given houses. That's great. Good for them. And then there's also parents like my parents, right? I got a guarantor loan for my first property. So rather than getting a hand out, I got a hand up. And then there's people that work their ass off and they don't have any of that kind of help. What category, where do you fall in that kind of sphere?
Definitely on the hard work side, right? Like my parents weren't wealthy by any means, right? My mum's only ever had the house we've lived in. She sold and bought a couple times to, upgrade as we've gone on. But, over 20 years, that's a long timeline for that. She's very, very good at budgeting. So I think that's where I've got my savviness from in that sense. But when you're tight on dollars, of course, you're tight on everything you spend, right? So you try and penny pinch just to get by, right? So I think I've learned some of that from her too.
Nice.
That's where I sit in that.
Yeah.
Like hard work, save it to get ahead in life. That's where I am. Yeah.
And that's how you do it. Like you can either sit down and mellow out and say, oh, this is an excuse. This person did this because of this. my question is how did they, like, okay, let's just imagine it's true. This kid went out there and bought 4 properties, and we're going to unravel the story. And you did. You've gone out there and owned 4 properties, 2 resis and 2 commercials. So so you're saving money.
Yep.
Were you going down the share path? Were you looking at crypto? Was it always property?
Sure.
Like
you said the T word.
well, what were you going to do with this money? Were you saving it particularly for a reason, or like what did it look like?
Yeah,
from that sense?
like I saved. So by the time I was 18, I had 60K saved. So that had taken 5 years, all through high school, right? I dabbled in shares when I was 18 in biology class. My mate, he bought some shares. This was the teacher watch, so it was quite funny when it happened. And we bought some shares. We made a little bit of profit on them eventually, like a year later, because we didn't want to pay the full CGT thing. Like we wanted the discount for it, right?
Yeah.
So we did a little bit of that, but honestly, didn't make enough money off it to be worthwhile. And I think that was a big, moment for me, that shares aren't giving me the return I want. And also, like, dividends are great, but you only get them it's not infrequent, I'd say, but like you might get at best quarterly, half a year, something like that. Whereas rent's every month, right? And you can control your cash flow way better.
Yeah.
You only get rents once a while. I suppose you could do month. You could even do fortnightly if you really wanted to.
Yeah.
There you go. You get a weekly if you wanted to, but I think that's probably
that is
crazy
not a
paycheck.
bad. So actually, it's so funny that you mentioned that, because my first experience in investing was shares as well. And I was like, okay, cool. How am I going to get wealthy? How's Warren Buffett get wealthy? Well, Warren Buffett buys shares. But the thing is, what I realized is, let's say you are the best investor ever and you have $20,000 and you get 10% compound returns or 20% compound returns on your $20,000. That's $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, and then you keep going, and you're all of a sudden the absolute most amazing. But if you're starting for such a low base, it's very challenging to get there. I actually
the power of leverage is insane.
The what? Sorry,
power of leverage.
Yeah. So shares are out. Crypto,
not completely.
Okay.
Shares, I still hold some, but like, am I going to fritter my money there? No, not, because it doesn't get me the same return. Like, I can make more money elsewhere, and I'm better at it, right? Like, if I was really, really good at shares, maybe I would have stayed with it, but I wasn't awful at it, but I'm way better in property. So I know where my strength is, so I'll stay there.
You got that leverage on property.
You can leverage shares as well, but it's sort of not as high and all that sort of stuff. And then you actually need to understand
the question I have is, when I was 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, I was not very disciplined. Like, don't get me wrong, I wanted to enjoy life, have fun, and then I look on your Facebook profile, and the first picture is you shark diving, and the second picture is you skydiving. So I think you're still having fun. But how did how did you remain disciplined enough to actually make this happen?
I mean, it comes from that budgeting mentality that mum taught me, right? Like, I divided all my expenses by 52, and then I give it to a separate account. Like, I have something like 13 accounts in my personal banking. Like, it's stupid. And it grows if I have another expense. It's a bit ridiculous in OTT, but it works, right? For every expense, right? And I just divide them by 52, direct debits if they can and whatever. And so for like rego insurance, 22.08 goes in there every week. Medical, 12.14. And I remember the numbers, but if you did them yourself, you could write them on a piece of paper, whatever. Yeah. And that's how I'm disciplined. I don't change from that, it works. So I can save like almost 80% of my income every week. It's pretty good.
That's insane. What I would say about this, what I've picked up so far is 2 really key things. Is that you are very detail driven and also extremely motivated. And I know this is probably stealing the thunder from the end, but what is the reason you're doing all this, Max? What's the reason? Why so much discipline, and why so much, I suppose, focus?
Well, I think it's because I'm not just doing it for myself, right? I'm doing it for my family. I want to do it for mum so I can retire her for all that she's given me, right? And I want to retire my stepdad. If I can, I'll retire my brother. I'll retire my sister. Yeah, anyone else who's still around at that point, I want to keep, it comes from the volunteering side, right? Like, I like to give back, right? But I want to be able to give to my family because they've given so much to me, and I feel really blessed for that. So that's where I come into it, like generational wealth. And to make it last a long time as well, and be able to teach that to, I've already started that JV with my brother. Like I can potentially teach him, I can teach my sister. So then we're all one successful family doing great things, right?
Yeah. That's interesting. Bring them along for the ride.
Yeah, exactly.
I got some
They're all making
goosebumps
incomes.
kind of thinking about that, because how did you even start thinking about this? Was it a book you read, or was it somebody you spoke to? How did you learn about these sort of concepts and ideas?
Just a couple books. Yeah, no, like a stupid amount of books. Yeah, like we've got a bookshelf in the living room, and there's like 2 shelves dedicated to me, and now they're like double stacked. Like there's a foreground and a background for it. So yeah, lots of reading, and I've done that during the time I was in school. So I had like a scholarship or something, so we were able to get like some of those finance books free of charge, which was cool. And then I bought some of my own, got them for birthdays and whatever. So heaps of reading and podcasts, of course.
The library's amazing as well. How good is
Yeah.
the library's fantastic these days?
What are some of the like foundational books? Like some of the good ones for me that kicked me off was Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad, 0 to 120 with Steve McKnight. What were some of the foundational ones that kind of?
I love that you mentioned the top 2 for me. Honestly, those were awesome ones. Yeah. No, that's cool. I love that. So on top of that, I'd go the same order you went, Joe. I'd go 1, 2 like that, and then I reckon number 3 was Buy Now by Lloyd Edge. I really liked that one. Millionaire Mindset by I think it was T something, but he was really good. I liked that one, just for the mindset stuff. Yeah, mindset was really cool for that one, and I don't know, it was a bit of a broader view on everything. Like some people, like the negative people in the comments, or differing opinions in the comments, like you see where their results might lead them if they think that way, whereas someone who's very positive and optimistic, like we are here and talking about, how do we do it? It leads you down a different path, right? And that's what I liked about that book. Yeah, pretty much those ones. All the others, they just built on that. Polisi, he's got his book. That's pretty good for commercial, of course. Rethink.
Well, no, didn't need him to say that, I promise. Didn't lead him to that.
No, he did off his own. That book was good, yeah. I used a couple little bits of pages of those, like dog ear, like you fold over the pages. Yeah, I did that for all the books. All of them have dog ears on them. It's awful. They look gross, but I always refer back to them when I buy a property for little bits and pieces. Yeah.
Well, speaking of commercial property, we do need to jump to this ad, but then I'm keen to unpack what this first purchase looks like, and how you even how that process, because you did this yourself, right? You purchased your first one. You didn't use a buyer's agent. You went hell for leather yourself. Cool. Well, let's see how that goes. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special announcement from the master of commercial property investing, Steve Polisi.
I love commercial property.
Get ready to have your minds blown, as Steve is back, and he's got some pretty exciting news for us. Steve is unleashing his second sensational book upon the world, and get this, for the Oz Property Investors members out there, he's giving it away absolutely free. Yep, 100% free. Yep, 100% free for all property enthusiasts who want to learn and grow on their commercial property investing journey. But he's also added a little extra chili to make this deal even spicier. With this free book, you'll also receive a complimentary 1-hour strategy session with the man himself. Imagine a full 60 minutes with Steve's commercial and property genius dedicated to helping you master the intricate dance of commercial property investing. And who better to dance with, the man who looks better than Patrick Swayze in Dirty Dancing? Don't know about that. Want to grab this offer? It's super easy. If you're live right now, click the link in the comments and secure it today. If not, grab your device, open up the browser, head over to polisiproperty.com, look for the book page, and grab your free copy of Steve's latest masterpiece. And when you're checking out, make sure to use the exclusive code OZPROP to secure the free book and also your free 1-hour strategy session. My only concern with this offer is that Steve's going to have to turn it off soon, as he can only do so many sessions. So if you want to secure your spot, do so today. Oh, nearly passed out there.
I love that ad.
Makes me giggle every single time.
Right. Yeah, we've watched it hundreds, maybe hundreds. But I love this one. I just have to share this. If Max had a burger, it would be called the Mick Possible. Maybe there's something in that. We could go to head office and say, we're going to make the Mick Possible. And just
go to Ronald.
Yeah,
Yeah, straight to the top. Yeah.
So, what we're gonna chat to, I think first. So, straight off the top of the hour, we're gonna talk to. Well, what was your first property? Well, tell us about how you went. What was the process involved? And as Joe said, you did it all yourself. So that's really interesting. How did you get that sorted?
Let's get started.
So number one, we went on a family holiday, but it was inspired by me buying a property, right? So I had booked in some inspections, and then we were forced to go on the family holiday to look at them, right? So the family holiday was for me to look at properties. It wasn't actually a family holiday. Everyone knew of it, right? We all knew what the purpose was. And so we went there, did a couple of inspections, viewed a couple of properties, right? And there was one that I really liked. And Mum was basically like, my advisor. She'd come in and we'd look at it. Dad, Jack, Amber would sit in the car waiting. I think they went into maybe one or two of them, maybe something like that. But normally it was just me and Mum, and definitely for the second one, it was just me and Mum because we flew down for that one. But the first one, we went around, we looked in them. First couple, yeah, and then last one we looked at, that was an off-market one, and we really liked that one. And the tenant was really good, so we met the tenant. He's in a good job up there, so security and that, and he seemed very pleasant. The house was immaculate, and it was reasonably priced as well, even when I negotiated it further down, right? And I was like, when we were going home that night, we were driving in the car towards Adelaide again, and on my phone I submitted the offer. And so they wanted 210, and then I offered 195, and then I think there was a little bit of back and forth, but then it said on that, so we got to 195 still. And that was pretty much the offer for the first one. So contacting the conveyancer, pretty much, yeah.
So when you said, I like this one, I don't like this one, what was it that you liked and what was it that you didn't like?
Well, the one that I did like, it had those typical landlord sort of colours, like white, and it had really nice grass, and I could tell the place was looked after, right? So because I was buying it tenanted, I wanted to see that it was looked after, and some of the other ones we went at weren't as nicely looked after. No disrespect to those tenants, but they didn't present the property as well, right? And that's sales agent's loss, I guess, sort of. But it. Also, the style of the house, and the rent that they were receiving, those were the factors playing into it. The price as well. Some of them were just too low, where it was like, well, why are you trying to sell it so low, right? Is it been on market for so long that you're just trying to throw it away at this point and get rid of the sale? So the one that I did get, it was still an 8% yield gross, and it was a reasonable price for that area. It was in a really good spot, like right near a school. And, now like last week, a couple of weeks ago, there was a development, approval thing for a childcare centre that they're building at the end of this year, right across from it, like out the front door. So that will be great for rent, great for tenancy. Vacancy rates are already super low there anyway, so it'll be awesome to have that there too.
Unreal. Okay, so
yeah, unknown to me, lucky.
Yeah.
First one.
Yeah, nailed it. And also the things that you're saying are not like, you didn't like the carpets, you didn't like the flooring. It was like you're actually talking about real property investing things that
like numbers. Yeah. Because my philosophy is I'm buying the numbers. I'm not buying, superficial metrics like, oh, the carpet's nice and fluffy. I'm buying things that give me money in my pocket. And like that Rich Dad Poor Dad book, he talks about buying a property to put money in his pocket. Same thing, right? Like I wanted to be making money as soon as I bought that property.
Talk to me. You seem very comfortable with the whole process. You said you popped an offer on your phone for the first one. How did you get comfortable with saying at 18? Because you were 18 years of age.
Yeah.
I remember at 18. I would be nervous going up to a club and showing them my license. I'd be like, are they going to say that I can't get into this? Oh no, I just made that up. But I think I probably would have. Yeah. How did you sort of? Because buying my first property, or sort of first couple, I was sort of in my mid-20s. And so how did you have that confidence? How did you know the process? How did you learn that?
Well, it's perfectly natural to be nervous. Why would you not be nervous? I mean, if I was 50, I'd be nervous buying my first property. If that's when I bought my first property. Like, the first time you do anything, you're going to be nervous about it, right? So why be nervous? Just do it. Of course you're going to be nervous. It's just a constant, right? If you do something once, it's going to be nervous. Second time, easier. Third time, easier. Fourth time, super easy. So... yeah, that's pretty much like just shut up and do it. that's sort of how I'm at with it. I said to myself more or less. So
me in my place. There you go. We've got to shut up and do it more.
Yeah, just do it. Just shut up. Just shut up and do it. Okay, so number one out now. What things have
kind of come up? Maybe we're a bit early into the journey, but when you got the property, was it all sunshine and rainbows? Was it what you were expecting? Were there any kind of challenges along the way of this first one, or I mean, you're at 4 now, so I'm sure there's been a lot of challenges, but how did it go with the first one?
So I knew there was going to be some initial repairs. That's why mainly the price had gone down as well. So I used that as a negotiation for that. The roof had some, like, we ended up putting roof slippers in it I think it was like 11 or 12, something like that. Like minimal, but it was leaking into the roof cavity, which was causing a little leak on the ceiling, right? So I got that fixed so it wouldn't cause a bigger issue. Really a minor inconvenience to the money I saved on the purchase price, right? So I was already in the green for when I purchased it, sort of priced in my repair and that. Then what else? I think there was some minimal gardening work to remove some wood because, there's potential for subterranean termites in there. So you want to remove wood off the ground, and there was wood somewhere on the ground, somewhere in the backyard. So I think that was about it for the initial stuff. It was mainly precautions. That's all it really was to maintain it. And that property has actually had the least amount of maintenance and repairs needed out of all of them. So that's an interesting fact too.
First the worst, first the best.
Yeah.
Second the worst, maybe.
Third the hairy chest. First the worst, second the best, third the hairy chest. Used to be the same. But so yeah, and we've talked to some of these sort of things, but I want to crystallize what were the metrics, or what was some of the research you did on this first property? How did you decide the location? How did you decide the price you wanted to pay for it? All these things, or was it deliberate, or was it something like, oh, this is the price I'm going to pay?
So the price, I work it out the price not based on what the sale agent tells me, because they're going to want to get the best price, right? So they're going to, spiel whatever they need to. So I work it out on, like, I want to, for Resi, right? If I'm buying in regional SA, I want to be achieving an 8% yield. 7, if you can get 7, that's okay, probably bare minimum. But 8% I was very happy with, and I'll do that. That's my sort of strategy. So, you get, the rent, divide that by 8%, and boom, there's your property price, right? So you do that. That's how you know your property price. You should purchase it at that point. If you can hit around there, that's pretty good, right? If you go a bit lower, awesome, better yield. A bit lower, like 7.9 is okay. Take that, you win, right? That's pretty much next rent review, you'll get it up to 8. That's one factor. Another factor coming from McDonald's, and I think this doesn't just apply to McDonald's, right? You could apply this to Woolies or Coles, any big business. They have investors and like people on their teams in the corporate area who know a lot, and they get massive degrees, masters and PhDs of anything property related when they make investments. They're not just going to go and set up a massive $10 million shop in the middle of nowhere and they can't make money. Where I invest, I'll always invest where there's a McDonald's in close proximity, because McDonald's has like 20-year leases. They're not going to leave. They want a better business and they want to make lots and lots of money. So of course they're going to invest somewhere where it's going to make lots of money.
Is there a Bunnings as well, or no Bunnings?
Yeah, there's a Bunnings. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Lots of big business. See?
That's
what you look for as well.
The Bunning Index. Feel like
the Bunnings Index. Yeah, I have heard that. Yeah.
Have you? I think I made it up.
Yeah. No. I read somewhere. There was a Bunnings Index. It literally was. Yeah.
Maybe I didn't make it up. If there is a Bunnings Index, it wasn't me. Okay, so you look for big corporates that are coming to town.
Yeah.
I mean McDonald's. There's a McDonald's everywhere though. Like.
Well, not everywhere, because you can look in certain suburbs, right? They don't invest in certain suburbs because they know that there's going to be a certain epicenter. Follow the burger. Yeah. But, like if you look at intersections, right? Those are going to have a lot of foot traffic for retail. And generally retail is what drives the population too. You have industrial for like employability and stuff in areas. Like you have, maybe a lot of workshops or whatever. People drive to that. They'll be willing to drive a long distance, but people want to go to the shops and whatever. So they want to be closer to shops. So people like to live in those areas too. Schools are generally in those areas. Like I think there's probably like hundreds of schools that are right across from a local shop, So stuff like that. There's just good indicators when there's a business nearby too. And it needs to be a strong business with good financials generally. So like those blue chip things.
Yeah. So, okay. So we got number one at 18. We're 18 years old. We got our first property. It's actually going pretty well. You've got the tenant in there. They're paying the rent. You got to fix a couple of things, but you knew that. You factored that into your purchase price. You didn't let the agent talk you down saying they had other offers at 210 or 205. No, I'm at 195. That's it. That's the numbers. Then what? Then what happened?
Put in the offer, call conveyancer, boom.
Oh no, on
contacted
the
me.
next one. So,
Oh, the next one, number 2.
Also, you spent all your money though, as well. Like you've been saving up since 14 to 18. We got
Yeah.
4 years worth of savings.
Well,
Talk to.
If you had 60, you could probably buy 2 of that 60, couldn't you? That 200.
Yeah, exactly, and that's more or less what happened.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because there was 49 spent on the first one, and then it was, I think, 26 or something on the next one, and they each had 5K deposits. So do those numbers on that. That's what they were. And that was pretty much number 2. It was just the same process again. And this time it was just Mum and I flying down. We drove around with a real estate agent. Didn't inspect this property, actually, because there was a tenant in there. It was just like, a drive-by sort of thing. But we looked at the photos online and we were quite happy with it. The yields matched what I wanted. So I was like, oh, cool, buy it, done.
Wow.
Because the money was there. So it's just
like making a burger.
money. Yeah.
Actually, McDonald's is a very, from as far as I understand, I haven't worked at McDonald's, but a very systematized, process-driven. If this, then that. Do this, do that. Have you taken anything away from McDonald's and brought that into your investing, or is this just a bit of a stretch question?
No, not really. Like, I think. Thanks.
It's a kind comment.
But yeah, like I think parts of it, yes. So like obviously not the burgers and making stuff. I think that's a bit of a stretch on those things. Like making a Big Mac, you can't really relate as a property. But like the systematic nature of McDonald's, yes, I think definitely. The customer service side too. Like you don't want to be rude to people because you want them to work with you again, right? So you got to maintain relationships and build relationships, managing people. So I say manage my property managers, but I don't mean it in a derogatory way at all, right? Like you have to communicate with them. So, of course, that's going to play into it. I'm a department manager. That helps as heaps, right? Managing tenants if I have to, managing the portfolio. Like my standards at work are quite strong. So my standards in my portfolio are quite strong too. And I know how to set those standards, make action plans, all that sort of stuff, right?
What do some of those standards look like in your property portfolio? Like, are you reviewing? But are you chatting to your property managers every 3 months? Are you chatting to your?
Probably like once a week.
Yeah,
once a week.
Once a week, like just sometimes, like sometimes there's stuff going on, so I want to know how it's going. I just like to be in the loop with stuff, right? Like, because if you catch something early, you can be proactive and fix it. So it takes 2 seconds to ask.
Flick an email across. Yeah. That's good,
literally.
man.
How's it going?
Yeah.
And then, it's pretty easy. It's just a quick little email, boom. I know what's going on, and they'll let me know because they know I want to know as well.
And the saying "how you do anything is how you do everything," right? Like you've essentially looked at your work and you've been promoted 3 times in the space of 7 years. So there's no coincidence there that's happened. And then you've looked to reapply how you've done that process in your investing journey. So it's not it really isn't rocket science. And people tend to overcomplicate these things. They say, oh, look, I have to make sure I'm getting all these the carpet has to be white. What's a bad example? But it has to be this, otherwise I can't invest. And it's like, well, why does that matter to you? What are the metrics that matter? And it feels like you've established your kind of key results you want to look at, and those are the things you're looking at. Anything outside of that, you're sort of not too focused on. I did want to ask.
Set filters up on realestate.com.
Yeah.
There's filters, like literally just filtering through. They get email alerts, stuff like that. Like have standards, and they just come through, filter through. I can ignore the noise.
Yeah. And what are some of your filters on real estate, right? Because this is one of the things that people don't realize. You can set up those things where you just say 3-bed. I don't know. What are your filters? How do you see that?
Well, 3-bedroom, right? I like 3-bedroom. That's a popular choice of people. 1 bathroom. That's a minimum, right? You can't have 0. So 1 plus is cool. You're right.
Yep.
0 plus would be, what's going on here? And then I don't really mind about land. Land is meh. So long as you look at the property and you assess if there's enough space and whatever. Like if there's photos, you can sort of figure that out. It depends on style and design of the house. And then I guess I can, those you can set specific words as well in there, like keywords. Yep. I put 8% on some. I put tenanted always. I like tenanted, right? I won't buy something untenanted.
That's a new one, isn't it, Joe?
Oh, mate, I don't put tenanted on, but I think I might start putting tenanted on.
Yeah,
We
well,
should have had this
if that's your strategy, right? If you want to buy something tenanted, you'll put tenanted on to keep just seeing those, and you exclude under contract, so you don't see those ones because why would you? Like, unless you're looking for potential scoop ups you can get, maybe if they don't go through. But I haven't seen many.
And Max, the reason Joe's eyes lit up is tenanted. What's your story with tenanted properties, Joe? I'll let you tell this because what do you like tenanted properties?
I don't know. Well, the reason I like tenanted properties, well, I thought I'm thinking like, do I have a story on this? But the whole thing is you can get a very good discount on the purchase price if there's a tenant in place, because the majority, 70% of the market is owner occupier, 30% is investors. When they have a tenant in place and it's got a 3, 6, 12-month lease, it's generally under rented. So investors like, oh, I don't like this one. It's $50 under market. Now let's just do some math. 50 times $52, 52 weeks a year. That's $2,600. But the price is like $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 less because the owner occupiers are not interested in that property. So if anyone's going to take away a top tip, I think there's a good few in here, but that is it's now in my search term, tenanted, because you get such amazing
competition.
Yeah, actually, we'll cut this bit out. Anyone that's watching this now, congratulations, enjoy this. Anyone, we'll skip to the next section.
4 months time.
But
it's definitely a good one to have. Like, because if I'd say all of us are investors, like you want to be finding things that make you money, unless you've got a different strategy, right? That's what I mean. Like if I suddenly felt like buying in vacant possessions, I'd look up vacant, right? I just changed the word.
Yeah,
that's really. I think the thing that for me stands out there is you're very specific and very clear on what you actually want. Whereas a lot of people, and we had Scott Aggon on a couple of weeks ago, and he said there's that top 5 or key 5 that he has, and be very specific with the agent. And you're using the realestate.com search engines to help you with that process. But I think that's something that everybody should be taking away. Like if you're wishy-washy with, I might want a property that's renovated, but I also am open to a set and forget, but I also might want to put a granny flat. What is important to you? Like really get clear on that, because then you'll start to see it'll just become so much easier for you rather than trying to buy that house land package that Joe sort of despises so much when he gets on his soapbox. But there was another thing that you said. You said you got an off market. How was that sort of process? What was involved in that? How did you do that?
It's just offered. It was an off market one. It was no more than that. They were just letting us look at properties because there was a property of view. She knew we were coming down to look at properties, so she let us know about that before we went down.
Boots on the ground.
Okay. Yeah. So you went there and said, "Hey, I'm coming down for the weekend. I'm going to look at 2 of your properties." And then she's like, "Well, look at 3 of them. Look at 3 of my properties because I've got this one I just listed."
Yeah, literally it.
This reminds me of the old, not old, but the Steve McKnight sort of process where they drive up and they get taken around. Remember that sort of cut? You probably remember the story where they got driven around to all the properties around Wendouree, and then they sort of, I think they went to 10 or 20 or whatever properties it was, and they ended up buying the second or third last one because the agent said to them, the story goes, they said, "Oh, look, you're going to love this one coming up next," and they went to it, and I think they bought that property then. But it's just amazing that was 25.
They send you to the dump at the first 3, 4, 5, first, second, third dumps, absolute. And then you get to the end, you're like, oh my gosh, any respite, I'll pay whatever price for it. Okay, so we bought number 2 pretty quickly. So you bought what, 2 at 18? You're only 18 years old.
So ridiculous. 18, I got 1, and then 19 to 20, I got like 1 more. So
right.
I don't know if it was. I think it was 12 months. No, because I got the first one in September, the next one in June, so it would have been less than 12.
Wow. Hey, actually, there's another question. Actually, this one came up, and I'm kind of interested in it. Did you look up to anyone in your property journey, or did you get help? Did you get mentored? Like, I'm just kind of blown away by if you put 18-year-old Joe in your seat. Mate, we're not going to talk about
that. I think that's a really good question because that makes me retrospective. I think because I did work experience at an accountancy firm, the local one, and then that was in year 12 voluntarily, right? So I had free time because I was very good academically. So I went to do work experience, didn't know what I wanted to do when I left school. That was the thing, right? Ended up I stayed for McDonald's, right? But long story short, did the accountancy thing for a week, got a job out of that, stayed with them for a little bit as I was doing McDonald's as well. Now, when you do it, because the guy who was doing it, he pretty much had me under his wing, so I was looking at everything that he was doing because it was work experience, right? I wasn't getting paid, so there wasn't an expectation of doing heaps of very technical work, right?
Manual, like just data entry or something like that, right?
But I went with him to meet a client as well. So, there's all sorts of things I got to learn from that. And he taught me so much about tax, like especially property, because I was already interested in property. I think partially the reason he said yes to me is because I showed him my spreadsheet when I went for the interview for work experience too. So, he was probably impressed by that. I don't think he said publicly to me that he was, but part of me thinks that as well, because it was probably shocking to see a 17-year-old have that, especially 60,000 as well. That would have probably rocked him, because he had heaps of clients. Like, he probably doesn't see many people like that. And that was the thing as well. Like, those clients, some of them were very successful, right? Obviously not going into details, but some of them had commercial, some of them had resi. So I could see how successful people were doing things, or how unsuccessful people were doing things just as true. So I think
what was your definition of a successful versus an unsuccessful sort of person on paper?
I have a feeling it has to do with a number for this guy.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, you might be onto something, right? But no, definitely profitability. So tax-wise, like if your depreciation takes off and you've got, after tax you're losing money, but before tax you were making money, no worries, right? That's pretty cool. That's just depreciation changing that profitability. That's where I learned about depreciation schedules too. So I didn't know about them at all until then. So obviously I've got one on all of my properties now. And, for a little bit of outlay, you get an awesome return because you're now saving money, right? So money you didn't have to spend, and it doesn't cost you money really, technically, thanks ATO.
Yeah.
But, stuff like that. If you looked at like some of the expenses they had as well, some of them did cheeky things. So you'd see things that, people did who were really good at it. People who did things that were losing stupid amounts of money, like just on interest, right? And they're paying silly loans. Or they did split loans where they had personal and investment mixed together, and they weren't claiming as much as they could potentially, right?
Right.
So little things that, you could do wrong, learn from those mistakes that others made.
Did you ever see, did you ever see the capital growth that people were making? Like, because you saw you saw that the ingoings and the outgoings, right? And that's negative gearing, and you're like, oh, I don't know about that. But did you look at the address and be like, cool, well, they bought it for 400,000, it's now worth 750,000, or?
Not quite. I just look at the CGT, like part of the tax return, and you see how much they're paying or not paying, or people using, taking advantage of a 6-year rule or whatever it was.
Yeah,
stuff like that you'd see pretty commonly. You might look up the address, but it wasn't a huge consideration because you were just doing the tax stuff, really. And honestly, I wouldn't be able to remember a single one of them.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. No, I'm just interested because you've come at this from a very logical, numbers-driven focus, and we're going to chat to your portfolio about how you've kind of gone from a cash, like it's focused on cash flow, which is very much of the way that accountants look at it and not factor in the capital growth side of things. So I'm interested to see how your portfolio is going to evolve over time. And maybe this question's a little bit too early, but okay. So we've got 2 properties under our belt. We've got two resis. But then you probably tapped out in cash, right? You've done 30,000, 30-odd thousand, 50,000 on the first one, something like that. And then you moved on to the next one. You're able to get your second one. But then what happened?
Well, interestingly enough, you say it's a cash problem. It wasn't a cash problem. It was a serviceability problem, right? The banks were getting all strict, and they were like, you're not spending any more money, mister. You're too young. That was legitimately what they were saying, right? They were like, okay, this is risky lending. You can't have this much money. You're going to go bankrupt if you do it this way. No wonder, right? Resi is like, they do a bunch of rental shading. It probably looked like I was losing heaps of money, even on low interest rates.
Yeah.
So I understand what they're getting at. And it was probably correct decision they made with Resi. I'm glad they did, because then I went to commercial. So I looked at a commercial property. I already had started reading like the Polisi book, Rethinks, Helen Tarrant's Unicorn Property One, right? Stuff like that. So I had seen
what I could. James Dawson, if you haven't read it, is something about 7-day commercial or something, 7-day weekend or something. It's a pretty good one.
Who was it? Who'd you say?
James Dawson. He's
Yeah, right.
he lives up in Byron Bay now. Like, I mean, we should try. No, maybe we can't get him on the show.
No idea. Never heard of him.
Yeah, no, he's a bit underground. But no, before we sort of unpack the third, you raised a point about sort of interest rates. I want to understand, because you bought your first when rates were at sort of 2%.
Oh, yeah.
Or 2-ish.
Cheap money.
How did you sort of start to feel as the 13 sort of interest rates were piling on? Were you still comfortable, or did you just sort of start to get a little uneasy? How did you feel about that happening?
Well, obviously it's not as profitable now. And my only regret, and it's a regret's not necessarily a regret, it's probably just a learning experience from that, an opportunity for next time. I think if the rates were ever to drop like that, fix it. Didn't fix it when I could have. Mum did. Mum got it fixed on like 1.99, so that was awesome. Good for her. Not me, but I'm still profitable even on high interest rates. So yeah, not really a concern, the interest rate, but I'm not as happy as I could have been. If I was, I'd be a happy little person just sitting there with my 2% interest rate, back in the day. Now,
very rare though that actually happens, because usually what will happen, the banks know, not exactly, but they know pretty well where they're going to go. So typically what will happen is, if they're at sort of 2% and the bank's fixed rates are at 2% as well, they sort of have a pretty good idea that rates will might go a little bit lower, because I was speculating we could have even seen negative interest rates at some stage.
Yeah,
so,
I remember hearing that. Yeah.
Yeah,
anyway.
I was chatting with a client who fixed in 2021 or something, or 22, fixed it for 5 years at 2% on $1 million loan. And I was like, man, I don't know, $100,000 decision just because he decided to fix it.
Can we have his Powerball numbers for tomorrow night, Joe, so we can put some money on those?
So actually, that is a question. Is your portfolio right now positive or negative? Like, what's going on here?
Well, I think it's in the best position it can be at the moment. Like, it's positive in my pocket every month. But when it comes to tax time, I'm not going to pay tax on it because I have those depreciation schedules. The commercials have so much depreciation on them, it's not even funny. So, like, the income is just, obliterated from the depreciation. So I'll make a nice profit from that and the tax man's like, oh, cool. Depreciation, enjoy. And the resi are pretty similar because they've had repairs, like the initial ones, stuff like that. There's general running costs in a property anyway. So a lot of that you can claim normally.
Well, it's lucky. I mean, it's lucky you got a, someone's commented here, I was hoping for an ordinary dropout of school kind of inspiration. You're too awesome, Max. Well done.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
I tell you what I love. You hear all these comments. Like we posted, I did a lot of posts and people were like, Joe, you're posting too much about this. And there was a little bit of negativity. And then we get on here and people hear your story and they're like, this is ridiculous. Like, well done, mate. So, I guess the negative Nancy's hide in the shadows. But this is unreal, man. You've crushed it. And the fact that you've transitioned from residential, because you're too commercial, like you've just looked at it and said, you know what? The numbers don't make sense anymore for me at resi. So how did that help you open up borrowing capacity? Like, how did it work from a resident? So how did that transition look?
Well, I'm pretty sure, like, Palisi goes into it a little bit. I think he was talking about it on something, maybe it was the Everything Property podcast, something like that. He was saying it somewhere where it was like, your borrowing capacity doesn't necessarily grow, but you just don't destroy it like you do with resi, right? It's more of a capital game. So that's how I very much see it. Like, it's not about, it's just a factor of time and money, right? So if I had $100 billion right now, I could buy heaps of commercial because I'd have you're just doing 70% LVRs and you just copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. That's all you're doing. And that serviceability is, I haven't, my lenders said, yeah, pretty much what you can do. The outlook is pretty positive.
Right. So what does that mean?
So, like, if I was to get a 30% deposit, I can just buy another commercial, depending on how much, of course, that 30% is, times that, whatever number you need to get your purchase price, and that's what it is again, right? So if I copy paste that enough times, I can just buy more, because that LVR is generally pretty positive anyway. Commercials are net yield. You're not going to have many costs at all. If it's a triple net yield, lucky. You have to have some good yields as well with that.
What's a triple
cash flow is huge.
Triple net yield is like for absolutely everything, I think, isn't it? They even pay for.
Yeah,
like
pretty
land
much
tax.
everything. There's some little bits here and there where they might not. If it's a retail lease, property management fees might not go onto it. Land tax sometimes, or strata sometimes, but you get pretty bloody close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mate,
Yeah.
so much wisdom. Like I'm astounded by you're 21. I don't know any 21-year-olds who have as much kind of nous in property as, I mean, maybe there are some out there, but I haven't spoken to them yet.
There's some good questions that like tie in perfectly with where we want to take it. Following on from your question, Jeff, can you ask Max, or I might ask him, knowing what you know now, would you focus knowing what you know now, would you do what you've done? Would you change it up? Would you mix it up? Like, how would you look at that?
All right, so that's a good question, right? Because I can understand that. Resi, I've made now. Commercial, it's harder to value from, like, you can just go to CoreLogic for resi and get your property value stuff, right? Pretty easy. You can't do it with commercial as easy. Right. So resi, I think it's great for building equity. That's what I'm using mine for, more or less now. That's sort of what it's just sitting in the background for. Maybe it will become more active for number 5. I'm not sure yet. I hope so. But number 5 will be commercial. Number 6 will be commercial as well. There's no outlook in the near future of converting to resi again. If I had some spare cash and I wanted to play with it and I didn't mind losing it, I might do a renovation deal to try and build some equity to get another commercial. But commercial's cash flow is such an awesome lifestyle changer that I just want to keep buying them. And they're easy to manage. They look after the place as well. And they're pretty good buildings generally because they're looked after very well.
What sort of mindset changes have you when you bought your commercial? Because you also, I want to unpack about the joint venture with your brother, but how do you think about commercial? Do you do you have a bigger buffer in place? Like what is the difference between, for you, resi versus commercial in terms of your management of it?
Generally, they're higher value, so you have a little bit more cash buffer just for general costs as the month goes on until you get your profit back. I think, generally speaking, it's easier to manage because I've done numbers through resi as well. It's not like I was doing, anything crazy. I just kept doing value investing from resi and I could transition to commercial. It was very smooth. The first one, of course, was scary, as we spoke about before. First one's going to be scary. You can expect that. But numbers, I was already numbers, so it didn't make it huge of an impact. And I read so many commercial books too, it didn't make it that hard either. I just referred to them if I had a question. Because Google's not helpful with it. At least it might be more helpful now because I've done all these podcasts.
So what about vacancies? Like, is that not a big fear for you? Like 6, 12, 18 months vacancies?
Well, the lease terms are huge sometimes. Like the one, I think, what was it? The third one I bought, they are on a 3+3. And then the second commercial I got, that was initially, because that was just out of COVID, the travel agent had been on a 1 year and the optometrist had been on a 1 year as well. So both properties are dual shop fronts. Now, the 1 year leases, they were a bit risky, right? And I think that was priced into the purchase price. So that's probably why I got such a good yield on them too, because optometrist is medical, so you'd probably expect to pay a lower yield for that anyway. But because it was a 1 year lease, of course, you don't have to. You can just undercharge that price. But when I had done that, very happy with the outcome of that because I had been able to make the travel agent go to 3+3 years. So now they're at 6, so there's less risk in that travel agent one. Optometrist comes up for a review soon, and they're going to stay longer. They've already been there for 60 years, both tenants. So don't have to worry too long.
Yeah, they're going
to stay. The optometrists for sure. Like their degrees are long. They're not going to jump up and leave straight away. People's lives
are not going to get better. They're going to get worse if anything. So unless there's not probably more.
Here I am without my binoculars on because it's too hard on the computer screen.
Well, can we talk to the commercial purchase? Because so you said dual shop fronts.
Yep.
Talk us through the process of buying this commercial property because scared of buying a commercial property. I don't understand it. How does it all work? Like, how did you go about purchasing this sucker?
And how did you finance it?
Yeah, financing was the easy part. That one, you just had to contact someone and they hooked you up with someone. And as it turns out, she's probably the best lender I'm going to find. I haven't found anyone better yet, so I'm very happy with her. What else?
So finding this property. So how'd you go? Did you just jump on realestate.com? Sorry, real commercial.
Yeah, like real commercial. Yeah. Went on there.
And that was the listing on there?
Yep. And then when I saw that, I was looking for commercial already for number 3. And I was showing Jack because he had built up quite the deposit as well now.
Who's Jack?
Jack's my younger brother, so he's 13 months younger. So he had been doing exactly the same because Mum, not forces us, but we're very willing participants in the budgeting scheme. It's good for us, right? Like, you see the results your older brother's getting, you want to join him.
Why not?
I'm definitely the property nerd of it. He just gets to tag along, so he was a good piggy bank for it, right? And he's not ashamed of that. He's getting awesome profits from it, just like I am, but he doesn't have to do as much of the work. And when we went to the first commercial, I showed him on the couch the property, listing, and I said, Jackson, we can buy this right now. And so we made an offer. Done. And then we got it. And a bit of negotiation, put 14 days due diligence in there, subject to finance, subject to building and pests, usual stuff.
Due diligence.
Yeah.
It's crazy you even kind of knew. Oh, you probably picked that up from reading some books or listening to the podcast.
Yeah,
like,
definitely. You definitely steal that from. That's a good one. That's your get out of jail free card. You don't lose that. No.
Okay, then what did you look at? So, okay, hang on. You haven't got a commercial buyer's agent. You've just gone on Real Commercial. It says, what was the net yield? What did the details of the property look like?
So that one was 210 that I bought it for. So that was the purchase price. Right. I think is it like around 8% yield. Oh, mums are the best. That's right. Yeah, I agree. But so 8%. 8%. It was somewhere in that margin. It was definitely above 8. Net. I think below 9, around that margin. And that was a net yield too. Obviously commercial. The lease, I'm almost certain, was pretty much triple. Because it was a retail premise, you couldn't charge a property management fee. But, as triple net as you can get to a retail premise, that's what it was. The income was about 19,000 up. That was like excluding your GST, obviously. So, yeah. More or less, those were the details. I worked out the purchase price from that. So, yeah.
You just don't see anything else, do you? You just see the numbers.
No, that's it, because that's what I'm buying. Like, I'm not buying the property. I want the numbers. Numbers.
Give me my spreadsheet, baby.
Yeah.
Love it. Okay. So 8 to 9%.
You shouldn't buy emotional. We're investors. Why would we buy emotionally? Unless we're buying a principal place of residence, don't put emotion into it. Anyway, my rant's over.
I'm with you. Okay, so, and then what did the offer look like? How'd you formulate that?
So obviously, like was Jeff saying, I stole it from the books. not that they had I don't remember them having templates.
No.
But they had 14 days due diligence. I think most of them were saying 21. But every time I offered 21, they kept going to 14. And I was like, I'll get it done in 14. I'll take it. If they want to feel like they're winning, those win-win situations, I'll let them take one and I can keep part of it.
Yeah. At day 12, all we need to say, if you need extra, I'm not saying people should do this, and nobody's watching except sort of close to 100 people still nearly. But all you need to do is say, hey, look, Mr. or Mrs. Agent, I've not quite, I just need 1 or 2 more days. Give me 5 days and we'll make it happen. It's basically a done deal. We've got it done. Give it to me. And we'll if you need it, that is. If you don't need it, then don't use it. But most agents are going to say, well, yeah, of course. Why would I? Otherwise, I have to go through 14 or 21
Well, I gave the 21 without wanting it. I didn't want 21. Yeah, I knew that they were going to, knock that back and put it. What they're going to do is they're going to focus on that part of it because they want a quicker settlement. They want their commission faster. So, of course, give them a really stupid number for due diligence. You're not stupid, but 21 is a long time, I think, for some properties. Of course, if it's a high value, go for that, right? But these ones were sub 500. So their lease review, building and pest, that's what their time was used for. And just, checking finances and stuff. So you don't need 21.
The other thing I'm loving about you at the age you are at 21 is you seem to have a really good grasp of people's sort of motivations and just actually building that relationship, which even people sort of double or maybe not triple, but double close to triple your age are going to struggle with because, well, not struggle, but they do struggle with it because they don't appreciate. They go in sort of very standoffish and say, well, no, I'm not going to tell the agent what I've sort of been looking for or what sort of works. They go in with that mindset, whereas I feel you go in with understanding what is that person's motivation? How can I help them get what they want? And then by them
you need the win-win, right?
What I want as well.
And the win-win's not give them everything or give them majority. Try and teeter towards closer to your side, obviously. But the win-win makes them want to do the deal too, right? You shouldn't make them so unhappy with a deal they try and screw you over either.
Well, they just won't do it.
Yeah. Okay, so you just threw some offers at them, and you worked the offer out on a 8%, like an 8.9% yield. Sorry, yeah.
No, like 8% to 9%. I don't know the exact number now, but it's in that margin definitely below 9.
Yep, and then there was there was a little bit of argy-bargy back and forth, and then secured it. Done.
Yep.
It's easy as that.
Pretty much contacted the lender. They were like, okay, it's like finance works a bit differently with commercial. You don't get pre-approval necessarily. It's a bit different. Like you just go, I'm not, commercial lender, so I don't know the exact way, but it pretty much, there was no pre-approval step. It was just straight to like unconditional lending.
Yeah, it was.
They gave you a rough figure.
You go out there and find an 8.5% yield. Your max is 8. Good luck. Have a good
one. Particularly not so interesting with commercial. You didn't have to go. I wanted 8% because that's what I had been doing, and I could see I could do it too. Right. So if I could only have done 7, I would have taken 7, but I got 8, so I was happy with that, and I did it twice. So would number 5 be an 8? 7's good too, right? It's commercial. It's a net yield, so I'm not as upset if it's a 7 or an 8 or a 6. I'd be upset if it's a 5 or a 4.
Yeah. Talking about the value that you're talking about is $210,000. Was that that was the purchase price? What are your thoughts around? I mean, that price. Like, do you feel
as a commercial, Joe, or what do you talk about the resi?
Well, how much was the commercial one?
210.
210.
Okay. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. I mean, is there a lot of risk? Did you feel there was risk associated to that, or it's just
the tenant? The tenant's good. That's not like the tenant's a national tenant. They're like an air conditioning specialist. They've got one in every single state. SA has 2. New South Wales has like 6 of the damn things. Every state has one. Obviously, like air conditioning specialists, they're sort of in those industrial areas. So you can sort of tell where they're going to be.
So you've even mixed up the type of commercial that you've gone. You've gone retail space, optometrist and travel agent, and now you've gone industrial, like in an industrial estate of that area.
Yeah, like they're in an industrial area, but they're a retail tenant. So, working in a retail business, I understand what makes them click. They need foot traffic at least. They need this, they need that, stuff like that. Like it's
I'm running Fezos.
Max, you'll love the Fezos. You love the numbers. Unreal. Okay, maybe. So
before I want to understand. There's something that we haven't really we've touched on it a couple of times. That the thing that is piqued my interest because I sort of say that people should be wary of doing it. But is a joint venture with your brother? How did you structure that sort of conversation? Like how and go into as much or as little detail as you want because obviously this is your brother's story.
Why did you do that? Because
the first one didn't have commercial has the higher deposit requirement, right? And it's I wouldn't say safer, but I was also like wanting to help Jack as well and use his money effectively, right? Because I was just sitting there getting interest. I knew I could make a better return for him, and also his money helps me get a better return too. So, and me and him get along really, really, really well, and I don't expect him ever to do it. I don't think he ever will, right? You always say that now. Hopefully it never happens. But, you structure things in a certain way where it's not possible either. And going from there, like his 30% deposit, it's quite a substantial amount. So him having the other half helps me. Half of costs as well. That helps as well. That was the main thought behind it.
Did you go and sort of seek legal and accounting advice as well around structuring and so good on you. Like how good is that? Like I almost sort of thought I shouldn't be surprised with it. I always thought you may have just said, hey, look, mate, we'll write this down and sort it all out. But you've gone. I shouldn't be surprised at that because everything you do is quite meticulous. You're quite structured and process driven. So good on you for doing that. If people are going to do that at home, I would highly suggest that people should do that because otherwise you sort of course you don't intend for things to go bad, but if they do, how does it get resolved? Even you might burn a few relationships or friendships or whatever.
How did you structure this thing? Like, have you set up companies and trusts and gone through that route? Are you doing it all in your individual? Like, how have you thought about the structure side of things?
So without going into too much detail, like because it's not risky enough yet, we don't need to go into anything too crazy yet. And we're not at a stage in profitability where it makes sense to go to a company structure for one, because we'll pay a higher tax rate. We're not like on a tax point of view, it'd be silly because I'm paying 30% on, where I could be paying a much lower rate. A trust is just two people, and it doesn't make enough sense to do those things. Obviously, moving forward, like I know that that's something I will be doing. So it doesn't make sense just yet. But there's definitely room to do that in the future. We don't have risky enough jobs for litigation. So it's not like I'm a doctor or a lawyer. I'm not going to have my stuff stolen from me yet. So
could be a property doctor. You can get that.
Property
get that
doctor.
yeah. Should get that domain before Joe does.
I'll buy that domain right now. I don't know why that's not owned already. Max
Probably
Jennings,
is,
property
yeah.
doctor. Probably
Property
is.
professor. Yeah. Ah, nice, man. So I reckon next we should get into what we're gonna talk about, what you're actually gonna do next, because this is only really the beginning of your journey. I feel there's a lot more to come in terms of what you're planning, and people have asked that as well, what the next 5 or 10 years looks like. So we'll throw an ad and then come back to that.
Love it.
Let's do it.
There's nothing worse than going into a situation unprepared, especially when that situation is purchasing one of the most expensive assets of your life against a trained property expert in the form of a real estate agent. It's a scary thought, but it is a skill that can be taught. Do you want to learn how to become fully prepared when buying a property so you can get out there, buy your dream home or investment property without the fear of actually messing it up? Scott Agate, the founder and expert property negotiator at Hello House, has been helping people buy their properties by stepping in and negotiating with the agents and saving his clients tens of thousands, and in some cases hundreds of thousands of dollars. Scott has now decided to share all that he's learned over the past 28 years in real estate so you can go out there and do the exact same thing on how to find a property, analyze that property, negotiate on that property, and transact on it to get the best results. He's created the Get Buyer Ready course, which is a step-by-step guide on how you too can become an expert property negotiator. It's the easy way of how you can avoid all of these agent games and get the best purchase price on that dream home or your investment property. The course is in short bites for busy people with no fluff at all. Just all the information you need to get buyer ready and secure that next property with confidence at the best price. Scott has been kind enough to give our community a massive discount with the link below. Sign up today before you even think about putting an offer on that next property, and it will be one of the best decisions you ever make.
Bloody oath. Bloody oath. Max Jennings, you're a bit of a savage, mate. I'm not going to lie. So I haven't listened to any other podcasts that you've done. I like to come into these conversations completely blind, and just chat to you. But you have crushed it, son. You are 21 years old, and you have a $1 million portfolio mixed of residential and commercial properties. This is unreal, mate. You haven't let anything stand you back, stand in your way, hold you back, any of that kind of stuff. Before we jump into what's coming up next, because of course, 5 years time, I feel like we've kind of helped discover you, because you're like that little thing. You're like going to blossom into this ridiculous property mogul who in 10 years time is going to be having his nice Ferrari and all the cool ads. But we're a part of that beginning journey. But what are some of the challenges that you face? This all couldn't have been rosy sunshine and rainbows. Like, what are some of the challenges that have kind of come up along the way, and how do they look?
So I think there's a major one in property 4. Jack and I, so we live with our mum and stepdad, and our biological father had passed away, which was unfortunate, right? He was 53 when he passed, and so we got a little inheritance from that. It was
Right.
60,000 each, and that's how we funded property number 4. Now, we had 120 combined for that JV, right? But we needed 160. So, because our DTI was, too high. It was mainly me because I had the other 3 combined. So I stuffed our deal. But we still got it because we worked our asses off to get 20,000 each. Like, I started doing Menulog as well as McDonald's full time to get the property. Jack was just doing his stuff, but he already had his portion. But, the inheritance helped, right, to get number 4. 1, 2, and 3 off our own backs, 100%. But number 4, we had. It's not even help, because would I want him dead? Absolutely not, right? But No, but you get my point, right? Like, I wouldn't wish that on anyone. It's awful. And I, at 10 days before my birthday, had to organize a funeral, right? That's not fun at all. So from that, I had to save up. Like, we wanted to use the money well. You didn't want to just have it sitting and doing nothing, or splurge it either and disrespect the money as well. That would be awful. So I think it's very honourable to use it and make a property that's very profitable as well, and hopefully a long-term investment for Jackson and I. But that was challenging that time, right? Because emotions were high. For someone who's very unemotional as an investor, that was a hard time.
Yeah. Wow. That's ridiculous. Okay.
The main one. I think other than that.
Well, yeah. Well, I guess in comparison.
Commercial, the first one, yeah. There's scary stuff in buying the first ones of everything as well. But that was probably the main one. That was the hardest time. I remember not worried about paying bills, but worried about I think we still had time for our due diligence and finance clauses. We had scapegoats for that, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was getting tight near the end, and we were like, are we going to be buying it or not? But no, we made it happen.
Am I going to pull it out? Right. So you didn't have the complete funds before you put your offer in.
Well, our DTI changed, right? Because that's the thing with commercial. If the creditor goes out and he says or she says, hey, look, I see your application for it, but I don't believe that they're going to be able to do it. And the main reason, once again, too young, right? They didn't want to give me $1 million worth of portfolio, which is about $700,000 in loan. Of that, the biggest one, $250,000, was this property. Even split between two people, that's a lot for a 21-year-old to take on, and for a 20-year-old to take on too, right? Yeah. So there was a lot of liability potentially for the bank. So they made our DTI my DTI was too high, which brought the whole LVR down. So we had to meet 30% again, which was that extra 40,000 essentially.
Unreal. Okay, yeah, that's a big challenge. You've overcome that. Okay, so what's next? We have 2 residentials in our portfolio. We have 2 commercials because we're absolute savage, but we're not slowing down.
No, not at all.
Slowing down. But what does it look like as well? Because, 2 resis. There's probably some good capital growth in there as well.
Definitely on the resis now. Yeah.
Equity, right? You get to play with some equity rather than your own money. What's next? What's the next phase look like?
All right, so let's consider best case scenario. I haven't done any of it yet, but I've looked into it and I've talked to some people to try and get the ball rolling already. So potentially I can cash out some equity on the residentials. Combined, depends, maybe around the 100 grand mark. That's enough for another commercial easily.
Jesus.
And that's
probably like a 400 or 500K commercial roughly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, probably like 300 easy, and then on my own cash, I'll probably get up to maybe 350, 400. Let's see. So it all depends what I get back as the cash out, but yeah, that's where number 5 will come from. Hopefully, fingers and toes. Otherwise, this year my goal is to buy number 5 anyway. Like, there's no option for me. It is buy number 5. I've bought a property every single year. Last year I was unfortunate enough to get number 4, but lucky enough to have 2 more in 1 year. So this year will be no different. I'll buy 1 more as well. Whether Jack's on that journey for that one for a JV, up to him. He might not have the savings at the time, right? But I'm able to buy it myself because I've got the resis.
So is that going to be the goal to sort of buy at least 1 each year for until say the end of the decade, or what's the?
Oh no, forever.
Forever.
Yeah, until I'm like crippled in a bed somewhere. I enjoy it too much. I'll buy more if I can. Like, I love commercial. I think it'll get to a point where, like, it'll be a game of capital, and that's what it is currently. Like, how much capital can I accumulate to buy another one? That's really what the issue is. I need just.
So do you want to get to you want to build to like $100 million portfolio? Is that like the longer term?
I see no reason why not, right? I enjoy the process too much to stop. It's like, if you really enjoyed playing football, you wouldn't just stop playing football because you win 1 game. I'd keep playing every single season.
I don't know. If I ever played 1 professional game of football and I won that game, I might be tempted to just be like, you know what, I could retire now with a 100% win record. Do I want to ruin that? And I would, of course, I would. I'd turn up the next week and we'd win the game. 2 games, 2 wins.
Mm-hmm. But that's how I see it. Like, it's not a matter of, I think people in the comments before, like in the original post in the chat group, they were talking about quality over quantity and stuff like that. I don't disagree with that. I agree completely, but I'm not buying, complete, crap. I'm buying very good properties, producing good numbers. And that's all it is. It's unemotional, make good numbers. If it's not a good number, I'm not going to maybe sell it. I'll probably just turn the equity into something different and then maybe, get rid of it then. But it depends. Like, your strategy changes if that's what happens. But meanwhile, while they're all profitable, I'm going to keep getting more profitable ones because they're out there.
Have you thought about, are you going to look to, because all four are generally in the same location, are you looking to branch out to other locations, or what's the sort of, what are your thoughts?
Commercial doesn't restrict me. That's the beauty of it, because those yields are achievable in lots of places. And I'm not against the general area. Like, regional SA is great. There's no stamp duty in SA at all, so that's a nice price thing, yeah. But for commercial, yeah. But SA's resi stamp duty, that more than makes up for us not getting paid on the commercial side. When's the book release?
So are you looking interstate or is the yield
not Victoria? Sorry, Victoria. The landlord rules are making me sad. Oh, there we go. Yeah. The landlord rules are making me sad.
That was like a censored finger to Victoria.
Victoria gets the finger.
So from a commercial perspective, where are you kind of considering purchasing this next one?
The numbers. It doesn't matter. It's the numbers, what's around it, the businesses. It's what it produces for me as a profit. Now, if there's ways I can mitigate some of that cost, like if I can achieve a better one in SA because I might be able to get something for a bigger one, right? A better tenant for less cost. Just like, New South Wales, you have heaps of expensive stuff. Good on them, fun. But SA, you can probably go a bit cheaper and get something massive. Like for 5 million, you're going to get something massive compared to New South Wales for 5 million. It might be dramatically smaller. So you toss that up as well. There's some risk. Did
you see our session with Mr. Andrew Bean? Did you see that? There's a beautiful commercial self storage just down the road from me that he purchased. I think was that 5 million, wasn't it, Joe? And he was maybe I'll flick it to you after. I reckon you'll absolutely, maybe you might have to chat to him.
It does ring a bell. I can't remember it specifically, but it does ring a bell.
Yeah. I thought this one was interesting from Jenny. She said, "I'm in love. I want to adopt him so he can reach me. Teach me. Not reach me. hopefully teach me." But no, that's I love this question, and I will ask. I think I'll ask one or two more as well. But what are your future what ifs for your current properties, and what's in place to reduce the likelihood of negative impact if they should happen? I think you probably thought about this many times over, but what are your thoughts?
I love the questions. I got to say, they're awesome. Like, this feels very self-reflective for me. This question, what are your future what ifs? I definitely think good management strategies, right? Coming as a manager myself, we're very proactive in my team. So if there's an issue, we fix it. Now, if cash flow is not okay at the time to do it, we find a plan and an action plan to get it fixed. Because if you don't fix something, the tenant might leave, you'll have a vacancy cost for that. So you don't want that. We're running a profitable portfolio. We cannot have vacancy. If we have it, well, you have vacancy, right? You just fix it as soon as you can. Commercial especially has that risk because it's commercial, right? You have a vacancy, you're paying, through the roof council rates, through the roof, everything, because it's just generally bigger buildings, more expenses, and they love to charge you more. So mitigating costs through good management, looking after tenants is important, always. That's probably the biggest what if, is managing vacancy. But not in the sense where I care about the vacancy number. I care about looking after the tenant, so I don't have to necessarily consider the vacancy.
Man, I love the way your mind sort of operates. You have it's not like the tenants decided to leave. I've got vacancy. Like, too bad, so sad. Like I'm so like, woe is me. It's like, okay, now what? What now? What is the plan now? I've got the plan in place. I just implement the plan. It's not even, oh crap, I feel sorry for myself. It's okay, read page 38. I'm gonna go and get a new tenant. Here's how we're gonna get the new tenant. We're gonna get this person in place in the next 20 days. And you'll just make it happen.
No reason to make your suffering take longer. Just get it done. Go. Fix it straight away so it's not a problem.
So here's a great question that's popped up, and let's jump to the question. So if anyone has any questions, throw them in the little question box, and we'll get to them. That's how it works.
Let
Another
us know.
question by Dylan. What happens if your brother gets a partner, married, engaged, kids, divorced? Jesus, he's had quite a wild ride. He's only 20. Give him a break.
Get emotional.
What happens to your properties and that on your own? What have you considered the implications of investing with your brother from a cash flow perspective, but also from a borrowing capacity and serviceability?
I mean, definitely we've considered it, right? Like it would be, this question's interesting because if you sort of rejig it a bit, take out the word brother, and if it was just me finding a partner, it'd probably be a similar situation, right? Like you can try and protect yourself as much as you want, but you're still going to, at some point, like depending on how long you've been with the person, you're probably going to have to give him half. Generally, that's how it is. Even like you can try and do the best protection on earth, you're probably going to have to find and pay something. Now, you can try and be careful with who you select. You know, don't find a gold digger. That would be a good idea. So little risk mitigations like that. Maybe don't let them get too close with those things. Maybe try not to let them pay, you know, don't let them be involved in the part of that. I don't think you can do many binding financial agreements or anything like that. They don't really work to my knowledge. At least not like SA anyway, or Australia generally. So you sort of just got to cop it on the chin. Just don't be a good husband is what I would say for that. As young as I am, no experience there, but be a good husband would be my suggestion. Don't divorce on your own volition or make it your fault.
Well, no, but it's also a fair question because I was having a conversation with a brother, a sister, and a brother, and they were looking to purchase their own property. Like they were like, Joe, we can borrow $1.1 million collectively. And I was like, oh, great, let's go and buy your property. No, simmer down, because individually you can each buy a $500,000 property. Maybe that is a better option for you because you're not going to be liable for the debt. Have you thought about the debt stuff? Like, I don't know, Jeff, you're the broker, so you might be able to shine a little bit more light on this. But
you pretty much nailed it, Joe. Yeah. Basically.
Oh, right. Well, there. Have you considered the lending perspective for going in these joint ventures?
I think yes, but I think we're looking not like yes, there's long-term thought, but it is profitability, right? Like I could worry all day about the things that could happen, but let me get the results that are happening. Yeah. And that's not to say to be, you know, risky or do anything crazy. That's where you set up your processes and things like that. So you sort of avoid that risk by being smart. Yeah. No.
I think the best, that's the best answer to the question there. From you have the system, you have the process. So no matter what happens to you, Max, I mean, no matter, there's probably things that could be a bit challenging, but you've got that mindset and you've got that sort of process in your head. You could say, okay, regardless of if the worst did happen with a partner and you decided to part your ways, then you would have that sort of psyche to go back and say, well, okay, I know how to do this. I just am going to do it again.
Yeah, like I just repair, be the repairman and start patching the holes again, build it back up, because it's the knowledge I have and the experience and the confidence to do it. So, you know, I don't want to lose it. I'll work to not lose it. But there's always the risk. Like you can try and make it impervious to anything, and it's not going to be possible. You'll be wasting your time, and there's so much cost in that too to even attempt to do that. Where you know all that profitability is going down the drain to try and make it impervious, and it may never happen either. Not to say you shouldn't protect yourself, but you know there's cost mitigation, and not complete cost mitigation.
Creating the scenario you're trying to avoid by sort of becoming so hyper alert and hyper aware of it, of guarding against it.
Yeah, and also you're only 21. Like I think I was 25, 26 when I bought my first property. So your whole portfolio could collapse right now.
And we hope it does.
Better off.
We really do.
It's like, thanks, Jeff. I appreciate that.
There's a good question.
I think this is an interesting one as well, because what your thoughts on it would be, because a lot of the books talk about it, and Police talks about it as well. There is an assumption that you should accumulate a few resi investments prior to commercial. Is this the case? And if so, why is this a common thing I keep hearing? At what point is it safe to enter to commercial, or safe to entry to commercial?
No, I agree. I definitely think you should earn your stripes in residential. Definitely, it's an equity problem in commercial, right? You're not, unless you've given, you know, tons and tons of cash. It's very hard to go straight into commercial. Also, you don't have the experience either. I think it's be unwise to go straight to it. There's a lot to lose in commercial, and there's a lot to gain too. You know, that's the risk reward. You know, but residential, people understand the asset better anyway. So people, when they go to buy it or sell it, if you had to get out of a bad investment, you could sell it and someone would probably buy it. Commercial, if you're selling a bad investment, no one on earth will buy that unless it's so underpriced.
Could take 12 to 18 months, could take 2 or 3 years to sell. If you and what are you doing in the meantime?
And all that time you're incurring the cost. Like you're paying council rates, you're paying this. It's definitely have resi first is my suggestion. Not just because I've done it. I think just from a risk mitigation point of view, it's a good idea.
Oh, Dylan. Dylan works in marketing, by the way.
Oh, does he?
Dylan make it to someone interested in buying commercials. Okay. That's an interesting one. No, but you're absolutely. I think the other thing about commercial is there is that like residential property is probably, as you say, less forgiving, inverted commas, less risk to some extent, depending on what and where you're buying it. And it's just my first property. If I'd had bought like a retail or even a doctor, I just think I would have been absolutely freaked out, just thinking, well, what happens if the tenant leaves? I just don't. That kind of sleep at night factor a lot of people talk about. And
but also
he's base.
He's bought commercials with 3-year leases, 6-year leases, 3x3s. He's got a 6-year lease. Like you want a sleep at night factor, and it's a 9% yield.
Just under 9. I wish I had 9s, Joe. I wish.
Oh, inflation's coming. Don't worry. Don't worry.
We'll get away the debt with all that inflation. Thanks. Ooh. make cash cheap again. Oh, I wish.
Make cash cheap again. Okay, well, let's hit some of these. Can you help me find a property, mate? You're a buyer's agent without even knowing it. People are throwing money at you.
Well, do you know what's interesting? I did help one of my mates. Obviously, not to the extent of a buyer's agent, but one of my mates I've helped buy his own commercial as well. So.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he bought one up in Queensland, so it was like 15,000 or something rent. And he bought it, I think it was a 6 or 7% yield, but it was net, so it was okay, you know. Yeah. Bit different in Queensland, so it wasn't my expertise. I just really looked over the lease and helped him find a property. And I said, well, this one's okay. I would like this one.
So I want to say this the last show. Can we?
You want to say this the last? It's already up. Let's just hit it now.
Right.
Maybe I missed something. What does Max plan to do as a career outside of the investment to fund bigger things? Because this is actually such a really good point. Like you're on a smaller salary. Well, you're 21, so who cares what you're on. But yeah, if you advance your career and grow bigger and grow, you can really juice the lemon. What are you kind of thinking long term?
I started studying for property. That was after Toddy's podcast. So I sort of got inspired by that to just do something. And like I put away money each time to do something fun, and I think learning real estate's fun. I mean, some people might not enjoy it, but I do. So I put money away for that now instead. Then as well, without saying too much or going into details because I don't want to yet, there's opportunities that have come up from all this networking, podcast stuff, and I'd like to see where they go. Let's see where that takes me. I think it will be very good for me, and yeah, I'm excited to see where the future is and what that career will be.
So no major no, because I guess this is one of the things people like. For me, I'm not. I love like we create property plans and we can see the end goal. I like seeing the end goal and being like, cool, I'm going to figure out a way. I'm going to make the best decisions at the time to get to that end goal. And then other people I'm going to do this 16-step process to get to it. It sounds like you're like, cool, I know what I like and I'm going to continue doing what I like. And then, kind of make it work as it goes along. And if the numbers stack up, then the numbers stack up. Love it.
And I suppose as well to that, you're already doing some volunteering. So is there a bigger vision for that sort of volunteering you want to bring to fruition?
I don't know. I've thought about it, right? I thought about maybe, I don't know if there's going to be anything from it, but like maybe one day I go into a school or something like that and show how to budget. Like that's something I thought of one time as a little, thought in my head. But do I see that happening right now? No. Also, I think you need some sort of license for that anyway. Unsolicited financial advice to kids might get you in trouble. But Definitely, I love the volunteering side of it, right? I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't love it, and you wouldn't be able to do it if you didn't do a good job of it either, because you have to look after people and be compassionate. I think it's good for me, right? It's good for my soul. It makes me more mature. Not to say I wasn't mature before then, but not many 21-year-olds have a 90-year-old friend, and I'm very blessed to have John. He's the 90-year-old I'm talking about. He's awesome. I'll probably show him this video after, and he'll be like, "Wow, Max, congratulations! He's so proud of me." But
That's amazing.
yeah, it's like you got a billion grandparents. But seriously, you get to leverage their experience. So, it might not be property. Most of them, it's not property, right? Because a lot of them are like, your usual worker, whatever, back in the day. They may have been on an assembly line or, doing retail or whatever it was that made their living back then. Might not be property. They might not have had the riches or whatever, but still, they've got such important advice. And it's hard to say what all of that is because you learn it and you just live it. That's the thing. It changes you as a person to volunteer. I don't even think aged care is the thing that made it. I think that's for me because I liked working with old people and I liked having that human connection. But I think if you volunteered at RSPCA, you probably have a similar experience where it's a dog really. So you'd be looking after the dog and look after it or a cat or whatever. Similar things that go through your mind. But yeah, it's very rewarding.
I love it.
It would be. It definitely would be. I mean, that's great. So, I mean, you can learn so much from people who've lived a lot before you. This is an interesting, I think maybe unless there's some crackers that go, I might make some last one. It's a quick one. Once you have your tick box checklist, Max, how quickly can you assess the viability of one property? Is it like a literally back of a napkin, yep, I can do it? Or is it, do you take it back to the spreadsheet?
Yeah, if I see a property that I don't like, I just disregard it. There was a couple that came through my, sorry, not a couple. There is lots that come through my email alerts that just come through automatically, and I've set up little names for them. So like it might say 8% ... where the state and suburb is, or ... this or that, whatever I'm looking for at the time. The commercial ones are pretty just generics, like price points and stuff. But I guess I can look at a property and see if I like it or not, especially commercial. Like the tenants freak me out sometimes. If it's vacant, I don't look at it. If it's a real dodgy tenant, it's like a cafe. Those freak me out because cafes, like McDonald's McCafe works because McDonald's is attached to it, not because McCafe is by itself. You buy a coffee with something, you don't buy it a standalone, or you don't last very long doing it. It's hard to maintain it because you need such high foot traffic.
Is McCafe a loss leader? Is that what you're saying?
No. It's not in the McDonald's because like you have the foot traffic already there, right? So it's just you tack it on for extra sales essentially, right? People like coffee, especially like Melbourne where they introduced it to begin with anyway. Like Melbourne loves coffee, so you can just get away with that pretty easily.
Big Mac with your latte. Are you stupid? What? Of course.
Yeah, it's like, so
fries with that
cafes freak me out. Because a lot of cafes are very family owned. They're not very, like in commercial, you see a lot of sophisticated structures like SMSS or stuff like that. So things like that, you see the tenants who behave in that manner and you're like, well, I'd like those tenants because they're sophisticated. They know what they want. They understand some things better than your average mum and dad. Not to say they're unprofitable, the mum and dads, but they're riskier tenants because they're not going to maybe stay there for 10 years, right? I want someone who has the longevity to stay for 10 years or 5 years plus 5 years, 3 plus 3. Resi is very similar, but you need the house. Resi is a lot more bones and structure with it. It needs to be a good house design, good house features, amenities and things like that for people to stay. The tenant is important more in commercial. Like you can swap your tenant out quite quickly in Resi if you're lucky. Yeah. Commercial, it's harder always.
Much tougher. Yeah.
Got some career advice in the
Hey, this has been an unreal session. Thank you very much for how can people like usually we have people on the show that have something to talk about, but how do people learn more about you? Like I guess what do you want to talk like what do you want to promote? What do you want to chat to? I appreciate you taking the time to run through this because this has been an awesome session. It's
been awesome. I love it. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. You guys do such a good at Oz Property. It's awesome to just look at the posts and everything. It's very inspirational stuff that gets posted. I love the Wednesday stuff.
Mate,
amazing.
Wednesdays are boring. So we're just trying to lift the mood a little bit, right? But man,
that was Ron, by the way. I think
all the posts that are coming in, are inspiring because it is.
I love
man.
that. I don't know if these are the same people who are negative, but I like how the tone has
No,
changed.
they decided not to turn up because they already made a preconceived idea. What I was going to say, if you head up to Sydney, and maybe if I head down to Adelaide, mate, I don't do this. We'll have to catch up for a beer or a coffee or whatever. Maybe we'll have I'll buy you a Big Mac or something. Let's go, man.
No, absolutely. Yeah, no.
We'll buy you
I love
the
that.
Big
Yeah.
You
I'll get
get the
discounts for that.
I'd say, yeah.
Don't mess with
But
it.
no, I appreciate you've been probably one of the more, I suppose, everybody's genuine, but there is just an absolute sense of genuineness about your story and the way you approach things, and just I'm going to go and get it. And I think this is the sort of thing that hopefully anybody watching, and hopefully some young kids out there are watching this and saying, I'm going to sort of be like Max, I suppose.
What's
I
something
hope
you would want to leave with people, right? There's other 21, 20-year-olds, 18-year-olds that are watching this. What would you kind of leave for them?
I think it comes to not being scared of buying property and also living within your means so much. Like, that's such an important thing. People talk, and this is not to, disregard people's hardship and whatever that might be, but the cost of living crisis can definitely be mitigated by not spending huge amounts of money. I don't think, I'm not saying everyone buys avocado toast, but you definitely should live within your means. That's what I do. Like, I can't save 80% of my income to buy commercial and resi if I didn't manage my expenses. There's sacrifices you have to make to get ahead. You can't complain and hope it happens. You have to be doing things, actionable things to complete your goal. It shouldn't be a dream. It should be a goal and a mission to get to that end goal.
Solid advice, mate. Thank you very much for taking the time. If anyone wants to reach out to Max, do it on the Facebooks. I'm sure you're going to see him around the traps a little bit more. This guy is going places. Let's go buy a property. Catch you guys later.